Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's webinar. This webinar is organized as a joint effort between Yorkville Student Success Center, the Education Technology Unit, and Turnitin. So my name is Ismail Faid, and I am Project Director, Education Technology at Yorkville. Today, we are presenting What's New in Academic Integrity by Courtney Nicolaides. Courtney Nicolaides is the Professional and Educational Services intern in. We will learn today about academic integrity and how to cite references properly and using and understanding the similarity reports. And also we'll try to see some case studies of what you may do in each of these cases. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the question box in your Zoom. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time in the end for more questions and discussions. Now, without further ado, we will turn over to Courtney. So thank you again, Courtney, and the floor is yours.
With their clients, starting a few years back, we know that in order to prevent plagiarism, we need to support the development of academic writing and investigation skills and support the good academic integrity practices. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. We will be specifically examining or exploring 3 questions. What is academic integrity and why is it important to us? Excuse me. How do I interpret the similarity report? Where does that similarity report come from? I already see a question. Thank you. And what features of the similarity report can support good writing practice? And then finally, how can I have a strategic conversation about the similarity report with instructors and perhaps other administrators on my campus? So we will stop. I'm going to stop every about 5 minutes or 10 minutes maximum to take questions, just so that the ebb and flow of the presentation is okay for everyone. So Turnitin is our motto, or our mission, rather, is to assure academic integrity in investigation and education at a global level. So what does that exactly mean? Excuse me. What does that mean to act with academic integrity? Well, there's the International Center for Academic Integrity offers this definition. So academic integrity is the commitment, even in times of adversity. And we could say that we're living or are moving out of a time of adversity with the following values: honesty, trust, justice, respect, courage, and responsibility, because these are the values that permit our ideals as academic communities into behavior. So what does that have to do with writing? How do we align the idea of academic integrity, writing skills, and plagiarism? So when we talk about academic integrity, we talk about, specifically with students, we focus on 2 things: doing our own work and giving credit where credit is due. And lacks of academic integrity would be things like copying homework, recycling an essay to use in 2 different classes with minor changes, buying documents online, copying big pieces of text without citing it, or summarizing or paraphrasing someone else's argument and not giving credit to the original author. Those are all lacks of academic integrity. And so Turnitin fits into this macro scope of academic integrity by helping you develop your academic writing skills to prevent plagiarism. And just so that we all have a standard definition of what plagiarism is, it is to pass off the ideas or words of another author as one's own. Now, I have the privilege of working with students from primary school to postgraduate studies, and it's not always obvious to students that when we don't cite, We're saying that it's our own words. So to pass off the ideas of another author as our own, or to use another's production in its totality without crediting the source. And so, how does Turnitin help us act with academic integrity? Well, this is should be very familiar to you. This is the similarity report. And at this moment, you might be thinking, well, she said similarity, she said plagiarism. How does this all fit together? The name of this report from Turnitin is called the Similarity Report. So this happens when you upload to your Moodle, Turnitin steps in, and we're doing an exhaustive comparison with 3 enormous databases. I'll tell you about that later. And the product of that comparison is this similarity report. First key concept that we need to review here is the difference between similarity and plagiarism. You will see, and when you upload your document, perhaps for new users, expect to see some of the text highlighted, because we're comparing sequences of text in your document with sequences of text in sources in these enormous databases. And so you will see 3 different bars. You will see this red bar that is the similarity detection. You will see these feedback features, and then you will also perhaps see this ETS rater that gives us language feedback. When we look at the similarity report, we want to focus our attention on the percentage of similarity, because it gives us a baseline for the interpretation. Because just like the instructors are interpreting the similarity report, we hope that this information today will allow you to strategically interpret the similarity report to develop some skills and avoid plagiarism. So this first percent, yes, sir.
Sorry, Courtney. Before we move on to explain this, I know it's quite a stressful experience for many of our students to go through, checking the similarity in a program like Turnitin, and probably it's like just building on what you introduced earlier about the definition of academic integrity. What exactly makes students' work or assignments or research, a more productive experience, and how we transition from using something like Turnitin as a tool for checking similarity into a tool that supports us in our learning and academic progress.
Perfect. So, excellent question. So the first thing that Turnitin can do is give us as students peace of mind, in that it maximizes transparency in the student-teacher interface. So everything that the teacher is seeing, we as students are also seeing, meaning that when we're doing these comparisons of text, everything that you as a student sees in real time, the instructor is also seeing, therefore allowing for conversation. When we talk about supporting the development of our writing skills, this list of sources is a fantastic way for us to check. First, as students, we can check that we've cited things correctly. So we see this red number 7, we can go down our list and we can see that we've cited it. But also we can take a deep dive into each one of our sources and first ask ourselves, is the information in this source a good match to my research question? It is daunting sometimes when we have to start our research process and I'll say what I do first. But you start in Google Scholar before you go to the university databases, right? And you get 23 million hits for the topic. But where do I start? And how do I how do I rest assured that the sources that I'm selecting are good for my research topic? Now, throughout the writing process, you can go back and check because you're able to click on this link and see the source. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you're able to use the indicators that your university, that Yorkville offers you, but usually there's about between 3 to 5, to determine whether these sources are credible and rigorous enough for the assignment at hand. So there would potentially be a higher level of expectation of academic rigor for our master's thesis than an average Tuesday homework. So I can look at this list of sources and I can say, oh man, do I really want 7 out of 10 sources to be from the internet, or should I go and research more deeply into the academic publications that that Yorkville is offering me? So you can see here in the list that an internet source, a publication. Also, you will know, because Turnitin does an exhaustive comparison with 3 databases. First, we check against internet sites, more than 90 billion internet sites, 17 million academic publications, and student work from around the world. So you will know if you are using if you're referencing a doctoral dissertation or a master's thesis in a different institution, in a different part of the world. Turnitin collaborates with 17,000 institutions in 140 countries. That is all transparent information, and it's like your it's like your business card. Here we look at all of this great research I have done. And then once again, you see it in its totality. And you also can click on the link and say, is this author an expert in the topic? Is the information objective? Is the information timely? Is the information in the sources that I have here, is it cited? Can I check where this information is from, and can it lead me to it? The citation is like a signpost to go to look for further information from these experts. So those are one last thing that I would like to say, because it was such a big, juicy question that you asked me, Ishmael, is you can also see how the research that you are doing supports your original argument. So let's just look at this second paragraph here. And I'm speaking about it in very rudimentary terms. So I'm thinking about a paragraph in the sense of a topic sentence, and then some research, and then some commentary, and then another piece of research. We hope to see a rainbow of sources. Like when we talk about this, the similarity, because each one appears in a different color, we would hope that you would have a variety of sources throughout your document, but also that you're constructing your argument, like because we as instructors, Ishmael, I'm sure you have given class too, and I love to give class. What we want to know is what you think and how you've constructed your original argument in relationship to what the experts say. So we would hope to see in a paragraph like this, your topic sentence, your introductory sentence, then some different colors of research with some commentary between those pieces of research, and then a closing sentence. We don't want, this relates to the idea of the similarity score. We don't want a huge similarity score, even if it's cited, because we want to know what you think. And constructing an original argument is not to be underestimated. It's a difficult cognitive and organizational task. And as instructors, we know that. So that was thank you for that great question. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Courtney. And just to exercise what you have been introducing here, I'm going to try to paraphrase what Courtney said. So now I'm consider me the student, and I'm trying to use your ideas into an argument or a paraphrase. So you talked about the relevance of the content or the references that I'm using in discussing a topic or a research I'm doing.
Yes.
You talked about how credible that source or these sources are.
Yes.
like coming from academic sources or recognized universities or contemporary research. The other thing was about the importance, and I believe this is basically the most important point myself, is how this reference or this content supports your argument. So
Yes.
as a researcher or as a student, you try to introduce maybe new ideas or innovative ideas
Yes.
to other colleagues or to the community, and without the proper referencing, people can easily challenge what you are presenting to them. So you need to support that by not saying I'm claiming or this is my idea, but you're saying, other experts or other subject
Yes.
matter experts in that field have reached to some conclusions or to certain points. And one other very interesting point was about the rainbow of sources. I think this is
Mm-hmm.
a nice way to remember
Mm-hmm.
and think about this, and maybe having contemporary sources in my references. Did I do this correctly, Courtney,
I
or
thank
did I
you. Thank you for
or
that
did I?
summary.
I think the last point was my own. I cited it as yours, so I'm just trying to.
Ishmael, I would like to build on what you said because I think it's important as so in conversations with students in the past, it has been brought to my attention that sometimes students can think that they're if they don't have a huge new idea like a new theory of economics, then it's not their original argument is not worthy. And so that's where the tension between do I cite, I kind of have this same idea as this author has just put it in better terminology. What do I do there? So I was in a conference in Latin America last week, and I heard something that I would like to share with you. This researcher said, citing the experts in your document is like bringing all of your researchers with you to present your paper. So you don't have to have come up with the newest theory of economics. You're saying, I believe this, and I'm bringing this guy, I'm bringing Karl Marx with me, and I'm bringing Keynes with me, and I'm bringing all of these people with me to tell you how their ideas have shaped what I thought. And I thought that that was very interesting because it seems relevant, so that citing doesn't seem sort of an archaic thing to do, but also gives it relevance that this is all of the work that I have done. And if you have a question, please refer to my league of experts behind me that I'm
Wonderful.
bringing to the paper. I really like that.
This is an excellent way to really describe it. It's like
Yes.
you get all these experts to support what you are arguing for. I love it. So I have a couple of questions before
Yes.
we move on. I think the first one I see is from Priya. I'm
Mhm.
not going in order, but in terms of reference here. So
Right.
what's the difference between plagiarism and similarity?
That is the fundamental question, Priya. Thank you so much. We can't finish this webinar without taking that question into account. I'm going to go into a live demonstration and I will show you that. But in general terms, and please, if it's not clear, ask me again. Let me show you what, and I just get overexcited. I wanted to tell you some other things. So when you upload the document to your learning management system, and Turnitin comes in and compares again internet sources, student work from around the world, and academic publications, what we're going to show you is this percentage of similarity and these highlighted texts. Now, Priya, what we see here in this number 7 is a clear example of similarity. We should expect similarity, and you do not have to have, in most cases, 0% similarity. This has a citation, and so its similarity is non-problematic. We should all of your research and your citations will show up as similarity. If similarity is not cited, and I'll show you an example of that, that's where we have a problem. So here we have a clear example, this number 7, everyone, of similarity. We have a citation. Without that, and here we go. This is what plagiarism would look like. So we know where it comes from. All right, so we have, and this is actually one of the most common ways that plagiarism presents itself in student documents. We have like a paragraph, and this text has come from 3 different sources, and we don't see any citation. Now, this is not, now going back to Ishmael's original question, there's a bigger issue in this paragraph than citation because we wouldn't want to just add citation after each piece and say, oh, that's a great paragraph, because here we're just seeing dialogue between our experts. What do you think, and how are you organizing your expert opinions in relationship to your original argument? So, but this is what plagiarism would look like, because we don't, you see the similarity, it's highlighted as similarity, but there's no citation. Do we have another question, Ishmael?
We actually have many questions. I'll try to quickly go through some of them,
Sure.
if that's okay. So one of the questions was about Wikipedia, why we can't use Wikipedia as a source. There's another one about what happens if I receive 5% similarity in my Turnitin assignment. And another one was, why shouldn't I use peer-reviewed academic, or why should I use, or sorry, why should I use peer-reviewed academic articles most of the time or all the time? And one last here is, if my paper is similar, does it mean that I plagiarized? So maybe you can start with these.
Well, I'm actually, Ishmael, I'm going to ask you if you would like to give some context about the conversation at Yorkville about research and use of primary and secondary sources, and then I can complement what you say.
Sure. Yeah. So most of these concepts are actually standardized across universities.
Yes.
And some of, like, you may say some of the best practices in terms of citations and using academic references is to use contemporary sources, build on the body of knowledge that others have started in the past. Like while it's okay to use some of the most popular theories, even if they are a bit or relatively old, but it's always important to try to build your research ideas and arguments on the most recent findings. So by most recent findings, a good practice or a standard practice is to consider the last 5 years of like most of the references used. So why not using Wikipedia? Personally, I think we can't use a source like Wikipedia because it's a platform that anybody can edit. Like, I can go to Wikipedia, create an account, and edit or create a new article about anything. And there are many incidents of funny incidents of people going to Wikipedia and creating their own, personal stuff. Of course, they take them down after some time, but I mean, like as you said in the beginning, there is no credibility in that sense. The other example was about the nature of references. So I know somebody asked about if we can use or if we have to use peer-reviewed academic articles most of the time. That's possible. You still can use other references for sure, but again, you have to use your own judgment in that case. So I would say, like, if we say you are doing a full research paper and you have, let's say, 50 different references, you don't want 50% of that list to come from magazines or web sources. You definitely need the majority of those references to come from trustworthy resources, more academic and peer-reviewed. And the reason for why we call them peer-reviewed, because that means that other experts or subject matter colleagues have reviewed these resources, and they have also given constructive feedback to the authors, the original authors in many cases. And sometimes they even return them their manuscripts and drafts and say, oh, something is missing, or you need to develop this more before it actually comes to us in a final publication form. So these are important points we consider as, and I keep using the word researchers because, once you come to academia and, work or study at university, regardless of your field, you could be in interior design, you could be in, it doesn't really matter, but part of you now, part of your job description or as a student is you are a researcher. So you are citing, you are using, personal ideas, innovative ideas, arguments, but at the same time, you also relate this to what's in the academic world and in research.
I totally agree with the answer. Thank you for the question, because it's not an easy question to answer, because every time we look at a source, we're making a judgment about the credibility and the usefulness of that source. So thank you. And also, when in doubt, ask your instructor what their expectation for the sources in your for that writing sample is, please.
Okay, so one easy question, I think, is there a way to access Google Scholar with the university account? For Google Scholar, all you need is actually a Google account or a Gmail account. So that's possibly what you need. Should you submit paper to Turnitin while you are writing it, or after you have written it, but before submission?
That is also a very good question. Turnitin, Ishmael, are all of your classes configured for multiple uploads?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not pretty sure about this, but I believe the short answer is yes.
Okay.
And yeah, in many cases, we may also have special requests by the course developers or the course leads, and they may ask for certain settings in some courses or in some cases.
So students, you should know that Turnitin has the capacity, or allows for a configuration of the activity in such a way that students can upload their document, check their percentage of similarity, check that everything is cited correctly. And if, for example, you saw that this number 7 in red didn't have a citation, you can rest at ease because you know where you got that information in this number 7, and you can then cite it, review and revise your document, cite it, and upload it again. So what you're hearing Ishmael say is, in the majority of the classes, that is preset as the configuration of your activity, meaning that when you upload it, it's preset. Check with your teacher just in case.
Yeah, and actually that will also be evident in the assignment instructions. So you have to carefully read the assignment instructions. If it's more than one submission or one draft, that will also be indicated, and that's possibly the case in some academic writing courses, or different types of writing courses where students may submit different drafts, receive feedback either from peers or from their professors. I have two similar questions here, or two related questions. The first is, I've received a 5% on my Turnitin report. I was surprised by the result. Could that be because of quotation in my essay? The other similar one, how much similarity is okay? We should write our essays without any similarity.
I'm going to take those questions as the fundamental points of the demonstration, so I won't forget them. If when I'm done with the demonstration it is still not clear, please let me know. So today, to this point, because I think it's a great important moment to sort of summarize again, we've talked about that this is the similarity report. It is the consequence of the comparison between different databases, and it includes important information for you to make strategic decisions about your writing, like the sources that you use and how you have placed expert voice in the construction of your original argument. We also talked about briefly the difference between similarity and plagiarism, and we'll touch on that again. Do we agree that it's okay to move
Yeah,
on to another topic? Okay.
sure.
Actually, I would like to see how we are on time. Oh, we don't have too much time. I'm going to skip this for a moment and then we'll go back to it. So how do I interpret the similarity report? This is the second key point. And what features support good writing practice? We're going now into our, excuse me. So here is a sample document. And here we're going to, so I'm going to model the thinking of a student who is interpreting their similarity report. And then I will give some extra information. So I am a student in the education department, and I've been asked to write an essay about what 21st century learning will look like after the pandemic. And I have the ability to resubmit my document after I revise it. The first thing that I want to do, and this attends to the last two questions asked, is I see that I have a 47% similarity. Now, that could give me some angst, but doesn't have to. So when I see this percentage of similarity, the relevant question is, what does that 47% of similarity consist in? So I'm going to scroll through my document, and the first thing I see is this similarity, because I have a citation, it's indented, I have the author's name, I have the year and the page number, and I know that it comes from this internet source. Now, very important. Just because it's cited like this doesn't mean the citation is correct. You can also use Turnitin to check the way that you have cited things before your final submission. So you can say, I've cited this. Let me just check that that's the right way to cite an internet source. That's a final check before you submit. So the first thing that I see is an example of similarity. Okay, so then I'm going to scroll through my document and I see another example. All of this in green comes from this number 5, and I see a citation. So I'm going to categorize it as similarity again. Now, we're going to get into this piece here where it says the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, but bear with me for a moment, please. I'm going to scroll down through my document. Oh, this starts to alarm me as a student. Say, I've got a few lines here. First, I don't see any citation. And second of all, I see some highlighted words, and then I have some words in white. All white text is the student's writing. But here I've got some red, and then I've got some student writing, and then I've got some red again, and I've got some student writing. That's very common when we as instructors review documents. And it's because either the student hasn't been able to paraphrase correctly, or has just decided to change some words to think that they can change it enough that they don't have to cite it, right? So here we see this number 1, all of this text in red coincides, it comes from this internet source, but watch what I can do. I can click here. I clicked on the number 1, and then I clicked on these bookends. And I see all of the text from this source. This is everything that exists in that online article. And I can see the part that I have copied in red. And I can see that I have changed these words. So the first thing that I can do as a student is the easy thing to do would be to add a citation. But then I can also think about how I could paraphrase this idea, put it in my own words and cite it and construct my original idea around that. So, but in terms of just quote unquote not getting in trouble, your instructor is also going to see this, and there is not a citation. This is a clear example of plagiarism. Okay. And this is what it looks like. I can see the text here. I can click on this link and it will take me to the original source. And this is where I can, one, decide how I'm going to cite it and just recheck that this is a credible source that I would like to use in my document. Now, sorry, I'm going back to this. The next thing that I'm going, oops, it's gonna open again. Well, the next thing that I want to do, so I have this with this 47%, I have my list of sources. And I've asked myself, what does this 47% of similarity consist in? I need to go here to my filters. I haven't forgotten the question about the 5%, don't worry. I'm going to exclude the quotes. That means I'm telling Turnitin, please exclude from my percentage any text that is indented or within quotation marks. We at Turnitin are not validating that you cited it correctly. Your instructor and you will do that together. We're only saying, Turnitin, don't take into account blocking or quotation marks. The other thing that we're telling Turnitin is, here, we're going to exclude the bibliography. Turnitin, please look through my document, and when you see the title, reference page, bibliography, references, jump over and do not take into account any text between that title and the end of the document, or that title and the following document, the following title. Because it's not a bad practice that your bibliography, sources in your bibliography exist in other bibliographies. That means that it could mean that they're relevant sources. So Turnitin, look for the word bibliography and don't take it into account. And then we're going to apply these changes. And look what that 47% goes down to 21%. And when I ask myself, what does that 21% consist in? And now I see that this is the top similarity here is not being taken into account. My others in quotation similarity is not being taken into account. And this stands out as something that I need, as an area of opportunity that I need to correct. But there is something else. We can also see that my list of sources has gotten shorter. But look here. You will likely find these short sequences of text like will require a understanding of and science, or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Things like the names of things, names of places, names of organizations, measurements, common knowledge, the earth rotates around the sun, phrases that are native to a type of research or content, or that are contemporary topics like the economic impact of COVID in 2020. Those are short sequences of text that do not need to be cited, because remember, we said we cite someone's original idea or original words, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development doesn't need to be cited. So this, going back to our very first question, the difference between similarity and plagiarism, this is a key example of similarity, but it doesn't need to be cited. So when we talk about the interpretation of the similarity report, we need to know how to use Turnitin. We need to know a little bit about citing, and we need to use our good common sense. And so we're going to go back here and trust ourselves, right? Like, do I need to cite this? We cite someone else's original words or ideas, okay? And so I'm going back to this filter, and I'm going to exclude. It gives me the opportunity to exclude a number of words in a sequence. Let's see. And if I count these, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, it's about 9 words. Our recommendation at Turnitin, but you need to ask your instructor, and we'll ask Ishmael now, is to exclude between 10 and 20 words. And we're going to do that here. I'm going to exclude 20 words. Why 20 words? Because it's about half of a complex sentence. That means anytime we see a sequence of words highlighted that we don't need to cite, and it's 20 words or less, Turnitin is going to take it out so that you don't have in your visual field all of these different mini sequences. And when we apply those changes, we'll have the minimum percentage of similarity. So we say 16%. What does this 16% consist in? I go through. Oops. The 16% is this part that I knew from the very beginning that I needed to change. And that's the value of Yorkville's formative stance on allowing for resubmissions, to give you the opportunity to say, I just missed it. Don't worry, I'll correct it. And this is, so when you say 5%, and Ishmael, I will defer to you, but Turnitin's stance is that we always use the percentage of similarity as a starting point for interpretation. And there's not necessarily an ideal percentage to strive for, because first we need to use the filter. And we might not always get out all of those short sequences of text. I don't know what Yorkville's perspective
Yeah,
is.
I think the best answer is for students to check with their programs, because each program, or even like each instructor, may have a different preference. But in general, like an acceptable percentage is something between 10 to 15% is still okay, and that's the norm in most universities. I'm referring here to the percentage, not the number of words, because your assignment could be in some cases something between 2 pages to 100 pages. So the system in that case will actually analyze all your writing, all the statements and paragraphs, and then the percentage will be the actual representation of that percentage. But also, I think this was an excellent example, Courtney, to show the difference between similarity and plagiarism. So out of that example, you started with 47%, and out of that percentage, we had almost 31% similarity, which was a healthy similarity. It wasn't something that a misconduct in any way.
Yes.
But only 16% was considered plagiarized content, which, like you said, students can easily work out and improve in as they develop this writing.
And thank you. Yes. And another thing that I would like to say to our students is, even though when you go in and you put the filters on, we can imagine a situation where an instructor says, please, in this case, please don't have more than 17% similarity. If you didn't interpret your similarity report and you just said, oh, I have 16%, you have 16%, which falls within the designated limit, but it's plagiarism. So it's still unacceptable. So the interpretation of the similarity report should be based on making sure that all of our similarities that need a citation have a citation, rather than just relying on a number. Because we can imagine that this is 15%, it's 15% plagiarism. And that's not what we're looking for.
Would you like to have a few more questions?
Please.
Yeah. So do you have to cite every sentence, or can you do it after a paragraph? That's one question. Another one, how much similarity is okay? I think we've touched on that one. All right, another one. Do I cite after each paragraph? I think this is similar to the one before. Some professors cite older articles while teaching, but they want students to cite recent articles. Okay, that's an interesting question, and I'm happy to hear it.
Would you like to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you repeat that last question? That professors?
Yes. Some professors cite older articles or references while teaching, but they want students to cite recent articles. Why?
that instructors cite all articles, but they
No,
want
old, sorry, or older ones, yeah.
old.
Mhm.
Ah, it's interesting. Ah, that perhaps they're trying to create a strong theoretical framework for you to help you understand where the most recent everything has was built on previous experts' knowledge. So when we cite older publications, we're also creating a theoretical framework to show where the new ideas exist in relationship to that theoretical framework.
Yes.
But we want to make sure that we do include new sources, new research, because it's the most recent thinking, but not the most recent. The most recent thinking fits within a trajectory of thinking. So that would be my answer, Ishmael. I don't know if you agree or if you have a different question.
Yes, yeah, that's an excellent answer. And I was going actually to say something similar. In many cases, there's a theoretical background or like uh, the main sources or the main founders of
Mm-hmm.
certain theories or practices in certain fields are things that are essential in most programs. And
Essential, sure.
yeah, and as a student, you normally need to start building that knowledge early enough. So that could be something that might be cited starting maybe 100 year to 1,000 year.
Yes.
So it
I
doesn't really matter how old or
just as an anecdote, my little brother who is starting to study his master's degree in psychology, and he texted me today and said, "Did you know that Einstein wrote to Freud, to the Nobel committee, and said he shouldn't get this, he shouldn't get the Nobel Prize because psychology is a fake science." So this just is a perfect example of how our thinking changes over time, and referencing different moments in the historical thinking shows, yeah, it gives breadth and depth to what we're trying to say.
absolutely. This is an excellent example for sure. So another one is yes. Okay. So uh, okay, I think it's similar to or relevant to the previous question about do we need to cite sentence by sentence or the full paragraph or the full idea? So I think there is some confusion around that point for some students.
About how to cite. So you're going to cite the idea, and it could be one line, it could be 3 lines. If it starts to be various lines of text, that's when we start to think about paraphrasing and putting the idea. When it's many lines, and I'm not going to say a number, but when it's many lines, we're going to read the text. We're going to identify the main idea of that part of the text, and we're going to put it in our own words and cite that. So you don't necessarily have one line and a citation when the next line comes from the same text, but rather the idea. But when it's many lines, we're going to summarize or paraphrase and cite that and insert that into our research. Ishmael, would
Okay,
you like to add something to that?
no, I think this is a perfect answer. There is a lengthy question by Shannon here. I noticed that the Yorkville site on Turnitin says that the first time you submit, you get the results back quickly, but then when you resubmit, it can take up to 24 hours. This is a bit of an issue when you are trying to meet a deadline. But
Right.
then the second resubmission could take a full day. And then if you want to submit prior to deadline and the third submission, how long could that take, as we may have a risk of resubmitting after the due date?
So that you're sort of seeing it from the opposite side of the issue. So the explanation here that they're giving you is you can upload. So if you are given the opportunity to submit various times before the due date, you can submit 3 times on the first day. And then you can submit one time every day, every 24 hours up until the due date. And the rationale behind that is we need to really look at the results and review and edit and revise and resubmit. Now, once you resubmit, so we can imagine we submitted 3 times on the first day on On the second day, we submitted once. You get the results immediately. So you don't have to wait 24 hours for the results. You just have to wait 24 hours to resubmit the document.
Yeah,
Is that
and
clear?
I think that's very logical. You have to wait in order to improve and make the required changes to your writing, which definitely will take some time.
Yes.
Another question by Susan. This is a nice question. What about our ideas being plagiarized?
Oh, that is a great idea. Before we move to that, just so you about the 24-hour period, I want you to know that once you are in the similarity report, you can, so I'm going to, and first of all, you can turn on and off the different filters, right? So here I have the maximum, I have my initial report. And then I can also turn on these different layers of feedback, right? But I'm going to turn these off here. I can download this document into a PDF, make sure that everything is turned on that you need to turn on. Because I'm imagining your research and writing process, like, oh, okay, so I made some changes to turn it in and I'm going to upload it again. You can see that this PDF, has all of the information. This exists in the cloud, and so you can access it at any time. But this PDF you could use as a reference. Oh, I've changed this, I've changed this, I've changed this before you submit. And it has all of the same information. The original, I took off the filters, so I have the percentage of similarity, all of the different sources. This percentage means the text that you took from this source is 12% of this source, right? So we're talking about not taking too much text, right? So just so that you know this exists. And if I had turned on those different feedback features, like what my teacher had given to me, or the language feedback, all of that would appear here. Just so you know that that exists as you do your rewrites. And okay, so now the next question, what if somebody takes our ideas? That's a great question. So the easy tech question, the answer that I have is, let's say you wrote your document, a fantastic master's thesis, and you published it online. And I saw it, and I thought, wow, that's just fantastic. I want to use that in my master's thesis. If I copied it, my teacher would know. It will say here, or we'll use Ishmael as an example. Ishmael wrote a fantastic dissertation. It would say, Courtney's teacher, Courtney got that from Ishmael's document. We don't have the example here, but it'll say student document. It'll say student text, and it will say turned into Yorkville University on this date. So your thinking is protected also, just so you know.
Excellent. Okay, so can Turnitin help with grammar check?
Ishmael, do we have it turned on in different places? It can.
Yes, we have the ETS turned on. Okay.
Yes. So this ETS allows us, your instructor has turned it on, and it allows us to get feedback in 5 different dimensions on our grammar, mechanics, style, usage, and spelling. So mechanics are things like, am I missing a comma, an apostrophe, a hyphen, capitalization? Now, this is automated feedback. So please take it as automated feedback. Sometimes, for example, in style, you will have made a stylistic choice of words that it's going to mark as incorrect. Use it as a reference, not as law, but absolutely it's useful as a guide, because sometimes we had to add an extra E here, or my mother is an English teacher, but sometimes I forget my commas. And so it helps me, like, here's a comma, put it in there. Oh, thank you very much. So yes, it exists. And if you were to download it in the PDF, it also exists there. Yes. Do we have another question?
Yeah, we actually have so many, but we have a few more minutes, so I'll try to go through them very quickly.
Yes.
If I interpret another person's ideas, does it consider as similarity or plagiarism?
Oh, this is a great question. So, um, we know that if you are going to use someone else's idea and paraphrase it, you need to, so first of all, you're going to identify what the main idea is and the main idea. You're going to put it in your own words and you're going to cite it. We detect sequences of text. So make sure, please, that your paraphrase is in your own words and also that it is cited. Teachers don't like to see things like what I showed you here. A few lines and some words, like a little bit of text taken from a source and then some of my own words, and then some other words taken from the source and then a little bit of my own words. It looks sloppy from an instructor's perspective. And if you want to paraphrase, please do put it in all of your own words and cite it. And that's the correct way to do it. Because yes, if you've just changed a few words as a paraphrase, we'll know. And then we'll say, okay, you have to redo it. You have to paraphrase it.
Great. Thank you, Farzan, for your comment. I think you're right. Every professor differs on how the use turned in. And also there are differences, you know, from one program to the other. So that's something we
Yes.
should also mention here. Is this what instructors see when you submit the report? Instructors see a little more of what you see as students. They can also add grades. Maybe, Courtney, would you like to add more?
Yes, of course. So please, the default is always ask your instructor, because instructors are different and it's important that you have all of the relevant information to do your best work. So please do always ask your instructor. Do instructors see things that students don't see? This is very important. There is a feature, and it's this one, that is available to the instructor and not to you. The instructor will know if you try and manipulate text. So please don't. And that is the main function that is available to instructors and not to students. Teachers can also, I wanted to show you so that you know that it exists. So please don't try and manipulate any text. And yes, instructors can add their grades, but basically it's Turnitin believes in transparency and equal information so that you can dialogue with your instructor. And so everything about the filters, you can turn on and off the filters. You can see the list. This is a short list of sources. These are the most probable sources that you used for your document. However, you can also click here and see the long list of sources. For example, if you are citing lines from a Shakespearean sonnet, Shakespeare wrote it, but it will also be on other internet sites and other student work and academic publications. You're able to see where this text exists in many different sources. So the important answer here is you and your instructor have the same information so that you can interpret the similarity report together and dialogue about it.
Great. Another question from Dayong. Is it okay if I use my own previous assignments? Or if I use something from my previous assignment, is it still plagiarized or plagiarism?
You know, this is a very important topic with professional researchers because they produce, their thinking evolves and they have to cite themselves. Ishmael, what is the policy at Yorkville for citing yourself in work? So if I create one essay for History 101 and I would like to use some of my thinking again later along my educational trajectory. When we talk about researchers that publish their thinking, peer-reviewed publications, you have to cite yourself. but I don't know what the...
Yeah, we use APA as our standard
Mhm,
citation system.
mhm.
So it will be the same. Like if you cite your own work, you have to indicate that to your instructor. Let's say I'm a student, I've submitted an assignment in one course, and the next course, which is a bit similar to the previous one, I decided I want to do the same topic with the same arguments and the same findings. Would that be okay?
No,
I don't think so. No,
no.
that's
You
that's
can,
definitely not.
you can cite a good idea that you had that you've already
Yeah, you can build
written
on
in
a good
a textbook.
idea, but
Yeah.
you can't repeat the same work, because that's definitely will be plagiarism. And I've spoken to some program deans and program directors, and they had incidents, similar incidents that were caught, and that was a big thing. So yeah,
Let
definitely.
me show you exactly. So yes, just so, I mean, so yes, do perhaps cite your own great idea within a new document. I mean, fully written new original argument. But if you turn in the document to two different teachers in the same way, so there's sometimes that we get this 100% similarity, and information is power. So if we get the 100% document, something happened. One, we bought it off the internet. We took it from a friend who um who has already turned it in, or we have already turned it in. And it doesn't have to be 100%. So yes, cite yourself, but if you have to change it significantly, or it will say 80%. And look, it says, I'm sorry, this is from my Spanish. It was in Spanish, but it says this is Courtney's original work turned in twice. So they'll know. So this supports with what Ishmael says. It's very important to do original work each time, although you could cite an idea that you had before.
So another question, how can you use Turnitin as a help for other assignments which are not turned in assignments? I'm not sure I understand that one.
So when you upload your documents to your learning management system, your instructor has already made it a Turnitin assignment. So if you wanted to do check your work out, that's something that you're creating for another purpose that is not Yorkville or your classes, there's really not a way. You really have to just upload it through the LMS, and your teacher enables that for you.
Great. So somebody's saying you've provided great deal of terrific information. I see your recording. Yes, the recording will be available online. You gonna receive another email from the Student Success Center, and they will most likely share the recording with you later. Do we have to use filtering ourselves, or do we need permission from our instructors to use the filters?
You can use the filters yourself. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, another same about the recording. Okay, someone has copied. Okay, sorry, that was a wrong message. What are the best paraphrasing practices? Sometimes it's challenging to put on my own words to specific ideas.
Yes. I would like to answer that question fully. I would like to provide some resources, like a short video that we have about credible sources, and also about how to summarize, because it's a deeper conversation and answer than I can give you in 30 seconds. So let me provide some sources that you can reference that could help you do that. And Ishmael, I think, can make that available to you.
Sure, yeah, that would be an excellent thing to do. So yeah, I don't see any more questions. So I think we're good. Courtney, would you like to add anything?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for those very thoughtful questions. They are questions from students who are both interested and aware of writing practices, and how a little bit about Turnitin and also citation. So thank you for your interest. Thank you for your time. And any questions that you may have that were not answered here, please send them to Ishmael and he can send them to me. And I hope that we get the opportunity to meet again online to further this conversation. But I wish you all the best. I wish you the best of luck in your studies this semester and going forward. And it has just been my pleasure to meet with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Courtney, and thank you everybody for your thoughtful questions and ideas. I've put my email in the chat, so please feel free to email me any questions, or Courtney, I will share your questions, and also any additional resources we may have. We can also definitely share this with you later on.
Great. Best of luck, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
Ishmael. See you soon.
Wonderful.